The Mongols were a nomadic group of tribes who lived in the steppe region of Asia. As they moved along traditional routes in search of food and water, they would often battle each other. They spent most of their time on horseback, moving their herds of animals, and living in yurts, zhairs. It was under the leadership of Genghis Khan, in the early 13th century, that the Mongols finally united as one tribe. He was called Temujin, and took on the title of Genghis Khan after defeating all of his rivals. As Khan, he set about conquering as much land as possible. He invaded the Jin, who had taken over northern China, and attacked the Muslim-controlled lands to the west. He was a great military leader, and strategist. Instead of a mixture of tribes, he created an organized army, very much like a Roman legion. He was also extremely brutal. If a city refused to surrender, when they finally captured it, he would kill everyone inside as an example. He would also fire bodies, infected with the plague, using catapults, into cities to spread the disease. The Mongols under Genghis controlled one of the largest empires in history, but it is estimated that more than 40 million people were killed by Genghis and his army. By the time Kublai Khan, Genghis' grandson, took over in 1260, the empire had been split into 4 kingdoms called Khanates, though he was still supposedly in charge of all of them. Kublai Khan conquered China in 1279, becoming its first foreign ruler, and starting the Yuan dynasty. He was well liked in China, as he united it for the first time since the Jin took over northern China, during the Song dynasty. He also used his soldiers to protect the Silk Road trading route, which allowed greater access to foreign trade, making them richer. Finally, he realized that the Mongols were great soldiers, but poor administrators, so he kept Chinese officials in the government to run the empire. Marco Polo, a Venetian merchant, was one of the Europeans to take advantage of Kublai Khan's protection of the Silk Road. Marco, his father, and uncle, traveled to China in the late 13th century. Marco even worked for Kublai Khan for a while, traveling around the empire on missions, and reporting what he saw on his travels. When he returned to Italy, Venice was at war and he was captured and imprisoned. In prison, one of his fellow prisoners listened to his stories and wrote them as a book, Il Milione, which became hugely popular. The Yuan dynasty eventually weakened due to several failed attempts to conquer places, like Japan. After Kublai Khan died, his successors fought each other, and the Chinese people decided to rebel. The Mongols were then overthrown in 1368. The rest of the Mongol Empire also started to fall apart, and the final Khanate fell in the beginning of the 16th century.